everyone. My name is Jake Charon. I am the COO of the Managed Service Providers Association of America. Today we have Val King of White Hat Virtual Technologies joining us and providing a webinar to all of our members, endorsed partners, and anyone else that wanted to join. So thank you all for joining. And Val, I'm going to flip it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jake. Looking forward to it today. So, yes, first and foremost, I am Val King, CEO, White Hat Virtual Technologies, managed services provider headquartered out of Austin, Texas, and Ascent Portal, governance and compliance portal we built really for myself some 9 years ago that we're now making available to other partners. And we've had a long history of doing work for other partners in the virtual desktop realm and other areas. Myself, said as a former CIO of a Texas regional bank and a former CIO of a regional healthcare system, which is really where the compliance side came from, which we'll dig into a little bit more as we go. But essentially, that's who I am, and we'll go ahead and dig in. So first, I want to talk a little bit about the market. And this is the overall goal here is to help you guys understand some of the steps that we've gone through successfully and unsuccessfully, honestly, in adding compliance and adding security to our managed services practice. What has worked well for us and what we have discovered, and a short version of how you can get there based off of what we've learned and some of what we've built to try to help other services providers that are not where we are, or where we have some expertise that we could potentially help give back a little bit. So for us, just to clarify, White Hat is a team of about 50 people scattered around the world between India, Bulgaria, North America, servicing primarily U.S. companies and their subsidiaries around the world. We take care of some, manage or support in some capacity, some 30,000 seats. In terms of what we do, that's not all managed services. Some of that's managed virtual desktops, et cetera. But anyway, that's who we are. And our primary client base when we began was healthcare and financial services. So that really started our step into compliance very early and trying to figure out ways to solve problems to get customers on board with compliance and then cybersecurity around it. But first and foremost, I want to dig into what the market looks like a little bit. I won't cover this too terribly long, but essentially for services providers looking at growing into MSSPs and picking up a compliance practice. On this cybersecurity side, you're looking at 11 to 20% revenue growth and basically a huge market out there. And I think essentially this is going to become table stakes for us. I think this will be one of those watershed moments. And this is just one idiot's opinion. It happens to be the idiot talking, where you're either going to have compliance services, security services, or ultimately you're going to get run over. And I think ultimately you're going to see cybersecurity insurance and other regulatory bodies fundamentally drive and enforce this. So for me, this is one of those moments to see coming and to jump and get ahead of, to begin to build this practice or flesh it out, because I think there'll be some end of services providers that don't get there myself. It's just coming up in every possible, every conversation these days. So who is the customer? Now, from our standpoint, this is important because this is really what everything we do is wrapped around, right? We're there in a support capacity. And we like to think of, or at least myself, that every single one of these customers, they wanted to do something so badly that they wished it into reality. They created a business, some idea sitting around somewhere. In our case, White Hat was born at a Steak and Shake many years ago. Yeah, you decided you wanted to do something and willed it into reality. And these guys have likely traded years of their lives to get these businesses in place. what we do from an IT services perspective, we were not part of that dream, right? They didn't wake up one day and go, I want a room full of computers. That's not what they did. A lot of them see us as a cost to be minimized and managed. They don't speak our language and typically don't want to talk to IT people because they don't want to deal with IT speak. And few see us really as what we can be, and really what I think is the strongest form of ourselves, which is as a catalyst for their business, able to hopefully be a competitive advantage and make them faster, better, quicker at what they do with us than without us, or what their competitors are doing with in-house IT. And so digging a little deeper into the customer, we look at customers in really two different tiers at a very, very simplistic level. One, our job, and you got a father and son sitting here in front of a beat down Mustang in the garage, trying to get everything right. Is ticketing in place? Are we doing our patching? Are we taking care of the basic maintenance? Are we doing the things we need to do to deliver a good, consistent, quality IT infrastructure to the end users? Because fundamentally, at the end of the day, that's the most expensive resource they have, is their people. And our job is to help facilitate making those people more productive by making sure the applications and systems all work. Instead of spending roughly $5,000 a user, which they do today, unless you're in the architecture space, it's closer to $10,000 to $15,000 per user based on the app set. They could spend $1.34 on a Big Chief notepad and a number 2 pencil if we didn't think all this technology infrastructure was going to make us more productive. So 1, get them right. 2, then once it is right, what can they do with this, right? The car's fixed. Let's get it down the road. Let's lay some smoke and black stripes on the asphalt, right? What can they do with this to leverage and improve their business? And really, this is the space where we get into being a competitive advantage for our customers. But the odds, and again, that's what we want to get, but the odds are not in their favor. So if you look at this little kind of gold chart in the bottom right-hand corner, 96% of businesses will never see $1 million in revenue. 1 in 5 won't survive the first year. In our IT industry, it's 1 in 4. 25% won't see the end of the first year. 50% of businesses fail within 5 years. Only 35% make it to 10 years, and 99% of businesses never reach 10 million in revenue. So this is the harsh upward climb that the man, the woman, the team with the dream to build a business, this is what they're facing. Having nothing to do with us before $1 is spent on IT. These are the table stakes, if you will. Now, this is the data here is a couple years old. It's based on 28 million firms in the United States. Now it's closer to 33 million, but the metrics still hold. And for our part, we want to help be part of that dream, right? As a services provider, for us as White Hat, for us as a community, we survive. We continue to pull in revenue when these guys survive and they're successful. So our job is ultimately to be part of that dream. What do they want to do? Bake bread, sell real estate, be a consultant? What do they want to do? And help improve their odds of survival, hopefully better with us than without us. Now, this is who we're up against. If you have a cybersecurity practice, or if you're building a cybersecurity practice for your organization, and certainly there's several others. This is just a handful of the ones that hit the news these days: Vice Society, Lockbit, Black Cat. These are structured organizations that are actively looking for our customers to go after. In some cases directly, in some cases they make the tools that others are using to go after our customers and us. If you look at the cost of cybersecurity insurance, the most expensive policies out there are for services providers, because we're connected to so many client environments that getting a hold of one services provider is and finding a way into their client base is easier than going after the clients individually. And it's been said, I'll say it again just to hit the cliche, but it is not a matter of if they will take some level of breach. It is just a matter of when. For us, for me, when I was in the banking space, we would get scanned or poked at roughly some 20,000 times a month, of which about 700, 750 rose above the noise level and needed some level of attention. And back then we were doing, one annual audit, a few different risk assessments, and even, at best 50 little kind of spot checks. But if you're getting poked at that many times, I mean, in my head, I was like, okay, if I'm getting poked at 20,000 times a month, 240,000 times a year, and I'm doing roughly 50 things, give or take, to make sure that my environment is safe, it's probably only a matter of time before I get my shorts ripped. So we wanted something that was more real time to help us meet the threat and figure out where to put our security dollars. I'm not even going to cover this slide. We'll just keep moving. Our enemies out there, the bad actors, and this is from MITRE ATT&CK. There's roughly 295 different tactics that they have at their disposal to come after our clients and yourselves, right? So everybody's got a different footprint, the different tools that they use, different tactics that they use in some combination, but in general, 295 of them. Hopefully that didn't look like an eye chart for you. And then there's us. Enter the hero, you. We have effectively 16 types of tools in general. You could carve these up a few different ways. But in general, we've got 16 different types of technologies available to us to defend against those 295 different tactics of them coming after us. And from our standpoint, if you're looking at this, this is really where we began, right? You can't be an expert in all of this, and you can probably look at this list and find a couple of things that aren't even there that you're thinking of, right? You don't have to be, if you're beginning, you don't have to be an expert in all of this. You may not have to be an expert at this after you've been doing this for several years. It's a matter of mitigating risk for your customers, and not every customer needs all of these technologies, and you don't have to be an expert in all of these technologies. So if you are stumbling into this space, some of this stuff you're going to know. Antivirus software, it's been table stakes since the 80s, but look to your third-party vendors, partners like us, to plug in the knowledge gap that you may not have, particularly in the beginning, to begin to build your stack. Again, do not go out there and build this whole entire stack. It's not necessary off the bat. Some of this is going to be more specific, but fundamentally begin building a stack that you can wrap your arms around and make sure that you can support, either with partners, vendors, what have you, so that you can step into this space and not have to spend a bunch of money on tools and a bunch of money on people before there's a revenue line to offset that. From our standpoint, I look at GRC, which is Governance, Risk, and Compliance, which was the 16th tool on that list, as and that is what Ascent Portal does. It's fundamentally why we built it for ourselves. But there's roughly 1,900 different security products out there. Again, if you want to break them up into those 16 categories or have others. So what do you need? And a problem I had as a CIO was the products all look like lattice work. In other words, I could layer 5 products together to try to build a suite, and I would cover one aspect 3 times across the tools, and I would still have holes where there wasn't anything in those tools to help close the gaps. So how do you work that out, right? How do you figure out where to put a finite number of dollars to both build your security practice, but more importantly, take care of your customer and making sure that their gaps are closed, because they're relying on us to protect them so they can go focus on their dream, on what they want to do. From our standpoint, GRC is a great place to start. because by doing baseline assessments and evaluating their infrastructure, it gives us a very clear place. And let me preface that to say against some sort of framework of controls. Now, in our case, we require every customer to have cybersecurity insurance. I would recommend you do the same because you're probably carrying it yourself. And in the event everything goes stupid, they're going to look for the deep pockets, and the deep pockets always have insurance companies behind them. So I would share in that risk with your clients. But your cybersecurity policies are going to require your clients now to have between 6 and 14 different technologies in place to protect the business, because cybersecurity carriers realize that between 2020 and 2021, premiums have gone up, give or take 100%, 70-ish% one year, 20-ish% the next, raising premiums because of the risk that customers present and not solving the basics like patching, anti-phishing training. Do they have firewalls? Are they doing third party, or are we doing basic patching, even third party patching? So use a baseline assessment from a GRC tool to understand where your customer stands against a control framework, which applies to everybody, cybersecurity insurance policy. And if you need help looking at that and reviewing it, that's something we're happy to help you with. We're not insurance experts, nor do any of us pretend to be, but you can certainly read a policy and understand what controls they need to have in place. And by control, I mean all of them require your customer to have multi-factor authentication. All of them will require anti-phishing training, firewalls, again, some level of patching. There's a handful of things that this is going to, that cybersecurity insurance carriers are going to require. Every carrier is a little bit different, but in general, that is your low bar that they should be meeting. If you step up and get to a CIS IG1 or a CMMC1, 18-ish, 18, 19, 17, 18, 19 controls, depending on how you're looking at it in the version we're talking about, then that's another low bar in terms of compliance, which is really should be table stakes at getting right. And then if they're in some sort of regulated space or required by a client to have, an ISO 27001 or NIST, HIPAA, HITECH, HITRUST, there's give or take 56 common frameworks, about 120 total. But these environments that have some sort of regulatory body will have to meet those controls, and a GRC tool doing a baseline assessment can help figure out what's in place, what's not in place, and prioritize where we need to put dollars, so you know where to begin, so you can build a roadmap, you can build a QBR to help a client figure out how do they get from where they are to where they need to be, meeting some level of compliance requirement, being at the simplest end, cybersecurity insurance, to some sort of significant framework of controls, like an ISO 27001, some 250 odd controls. But how do they get there? Again, there's always, just like in your own business, there's always going to be more hungry birds in the nest than there are dollars to feed them. Your clients have the same problem. So helping them step through it in a way with a baseline assessment is critical to figuring out how they can, how you can and they can make the dollars available, procure those dollars to solve the problems that they've got in a way that they can get their arms around it and have it make sense for their business, and also see the progress that they're making as they get these pieces in place. Because cybersecurity is typically not adding to the bottom line, adding to protecting their reputation, helping improve their ability to stay in business. Yes, but anyway, that's enough on that topic. If you got more questions, I'd be happy to answer them at the end. So building a security practice by exception. Again, I want to approach this from this angle, right? I'm going to assume you're starting from scratch, and you've got to go build a practice, build some revenue to support the practice, to continue to grow it, to justify payroll and tools as you go, not having the ability really to put a huge investment out up front before you're starting to drive that business with your clients. The first thing I will say is, physician, heal thyself. Fix yourself first. If you're using, look at your own security. Go through your own baseline assessments. We have to have a SOC 2 because we have hosted infrastructure. We've got to have other compliance requirements in place to meet the needs for our clients. But fundamentally, work on yourself. If you have no basis, if you're not an MSSP or not really leaning that direction and trying to get there, going through the exercise of making yourself right against a CIS IG1 framework of controls from MITRE ATT&CK, or even your own cybersecurity insurance policy, meeting those requirements and the steps you have to go through to get there is going to give you some great stories and some great experience to share with your clients while you help them on their journey and begin to build your own knowledge and depth and expertise with developing out your own practice. Fundamentally, for me, how do you capture a portion of the market and grow some MRR for your efforts? Taking a page from our playbook, very quickly, make the complex easy to understand. Don't do a tech vomit on your customers, please. From our standpoint, we try to use analogies and simplistic language that they can get their arms around, they can understand from a business perspective, so they can make an informed decision. We don't want to put them into a place where they don't understand what we're talking about and they just have to look at us and trust us that we've got their best interest. Certainly the majority of our customers do, but I would much rather give them the tools to be able to make some sort of informed decision in their own head using an analogy. For instance, I have a healthcare customer who is looking at, well, do I work on my policies first, or do we work on using the Ascent Portal to start to get our controls in place, right? And this is a very simplistic example, but from my standpoint, I could dig into a framework. Well, you're looking at NIST, the NIST cybersecurity frameworks. You've got the effectively, it's like, look, think about it like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? We all get peanut butter and jelly sandwich. There's a 6-year-old in me somewhere who would not have made it to 7 without them. But I don't really care if you put the jelly on the bread first or if you put the peanut butter on the other piece of bread first. As long as I end up with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich at the end, I'm good, right? Okay, that's an analogy they can get their head around. So just try to keep it simple for them. And creating simple self-evident security opportunities. What I mean by that is, next logical step. If you've got if you need to be, they need to be compliant with their cybersecurity policy, laying these the steps out of what are the steps, give them, and this will borrow from the last point, giving them a plan, but make it easy. I don't want Grand Canyon leaps between where they are and where they need to be. There's some of those things that are going to happen, particularly like us. I mean, we never pick up customers that are perfect and all's right with the world. It's usually a dumpster fire. So you do have to make some large leaps, but where you can, give them steps, give them a plan of that leads them to a destination instead of one piece at a time, not giving them the headlights or the visibility further down the road. Help them see how one step builds on the next. Managing costs by focusing on exceptions and not the process. This is really as much about you as it is them, which is there's so many different things you can wrap your arms around. And for services providers, it's very easy for your payroll to grow in line with your revenue, right? So you're $1 million services provider doing business, and then you're a $5 million services provider doing business, but you're not making any more money because your payroll and your headcount is growing in line with your revenue. Where really our goal is to make that, to build a bigger gap between those two things, certainly as you go. And part of that is by looking at, how do I not manage the process? How do I manage the exceptions to the process? Trust the systems to drive the process, trust people to manage the exceptions. and then ultimately have a plan. The Joker had it right. Doesn't matter how terrible the plan. People want a plan. They want to know where we're going and what they're doing, and you're the expert to guide them, and that's what they're looking at you for. At a very, very high level here, these are some of the things that MSP clients are asking for, at least in our end of the world. You're probably hearing or seeing some of these things. So here are some topics to either bring up or things you've probably heard, and this is a place to start. Like, well, where do I start to begin to build out a practice? Addressing these particular problems, helping your customers address patching if you're not already, certainly should be. Meeting compliance requirements, helping them meet their cybersecurity insurance, right? Just low-hanging fruit by and large to provide a better level of service to your customer, but also fundamentally begin to build your own security practice for your organization. I won't go into this in incredible detail. Take a look at that for a second. So let's talk a little bit about what your customers are doing, right? If they do have some sort of compliance requirement, a lot of these guys are still using spreadsheets and paper forms and email to figure out how to manage their compliance requirements. Spreadsheets, who knew how universal they would be? So for you, if we're just going to start from scratch and figure out how to build a practice, to take out some of the theoreticals, I'm going to give you just a handful of steps. Start by requesting a copy of your client's cybersecurity insurance policy, existing clients. Somewhere in there is going to be 6 to 13 things they need to be doing today, or help them understand the value of cybersecurity insurance for the business. An average breach costs ultimately $4 million, according to IBM. Now, those aren't hard dollars. That's lost business, revenue, employee pay, a whole host of things that ultimately roll into that. But how many of your customers could take a $4 million punch in the mouth and survive? So helping them understand and ultimately requiring cybersecurity policies for your customers. Roughly 50% of businesses in the United States, anyway, have those policies. So there's certainly an opportunity for growth there. But starting there and understanding what the compliance requirements are for their own policy. Because you fill out that application for them or with them, or they fill it out, and then ultimately have a breach. And if the insurance carrier sees that what's on the original application is not in line with, we have multi-factor authentication, but we have a problem. We didn't have all systems with multi-factor on it, and multi-factor was the source of the breach, just to give you one very simple example that we've lived through. Picking up a new client, then they can decline to pay and ultimately not be the backstop that they're being paid to be for organizations. So it's our job to in my mind anyway, to help make sure that our customers are doing the things they need to do to make sure that that backstop is there for them. Now, you can't care more than they do, which is a legitimate problem we'll talk about here in a minute. But fundamentally, we have to do our level best to make sure that we're spotting the holes in the road that they need to avoid. By and large, meeting those cybersecurity policy requirements are probably going to pull through projects for you, putting multi-factor authentication in place, putting tools in place to address anti-phishing training for their staff, making sure that we've got firewalls in place, probably already there. Be surprised if they're not, and doing patching and third-party patching. Look to build specific partnerships. So again, if you're just going to start with cybersecurity insurance, right? Let's keep it really small. Let's just start with cybersecurity insurance. Let's look at what's needed in your own policy, and then pull the policies of your clients and look at them and see what's required and what do you have the expertise to address in-house today versus what do you need a partner to assist you with so that you've got a well-rounded practice. Because as I say all the time, it's very easy for me to make myself look stupid. I don't need a vendor's help, right? So that you've got a well-baked plan to go to market with, even if small, It's a place to start, to begin to get your foot in the water, and to build a practice to ultimately you can staff to and put more sophisticated tools around, and ultimately drive a better book of business for yourself and for your customer. And then look at real-time options as an upgrade. For me, this is very important. Now, this just comes from my space of looking at healthcare and financial services, but I mean, our customers are getting poked at all the time, right? I don't want an annual penetration test or an annual vulnerability assessment to tell me how good I am. What if one of your guys absolutely accidentally leaves a port open on a firewall after an upgrade, right? And that doesn't get caught until either there's a breach or until there's another penetration test, right? So I'm looking for tools that I can incorporate, be it our own with Ascent or third party, particularly from a security perspective, to help me get real time, to move at the pace that we're being poked at by the bad guys. This was, from me, kind of a big aha moment. This happened to me in the healthcare system, which was CEO asking, "Hey, what's the state of our cybersecurity program for our organization?" Right, and I feeling pretty good, boss. Right, it's looking good. We're doing some patching. Our tickets are good. We did our Windows updates. Right. What kind of answer is that? For me, that wasn't a good answer at all. But it was all I had at the time. So that question, more or less, led to me changing the way I'm thinking, or the way I was thinking, which led us to today, some 9 years later. For me, using, in this case, Ascent. Now, the early version was a bunch of Post-it notes stuck on a bunch of huge Post-it sheets stuck around a conference room. There were 1,000 controls we had to put in place, and you would literally do something and take the Post-it note off of one sheet and stick it in the done pile, and that was it. Fortunately, we have evolved a little, and that's what the bottom half of this screen shows. Is when I log in, I can see that my current compliance score is 100, green, yellow, red. In place, not in place, green in place, red not in place, yellow not applicable. But in this case, 100%, and I've been there all year. So controls in place, 94.94%. So for me, I can say definitively, what's the state of our cybersecurity program? Well, we're sitting at 100%, meeting the controls we need to meet. 94% of those controls are in place. We're right where we need to be. And then looking at individual controls or asks, right? And this is just a quick example. I'm using the questionnaire, in this case, a baseline questionnaire, to understand how we're doing, right? And define those gaps for our organization. So in this case, does the company perform background checks on a new employees? Well, yes. Control in place, check. So that would be in the green category in that previous section. But that's not just enough. You can't just say you're doing it. Where's your proof? So you see down here, there's upload an artifact, right? So how do I prove that we're doing background checks? Grab a background check, block out the information that may be sensitive, and ultimately upload that artifact, or have an integration from our standpoint with Ascent, integrating your tools. So if I can pull, say, multi-factor authentication information from M365, then I want to grab it, because I don't want to do compliance. Again, whoever said I don't want a room full of computers probably also said I want to wake up today and do compliance. Never did they say that. So how can we have systems providing these answers? So if you've got a Rapid7 or an ESET or various other tools in place that can provide answers, like, do you have multi-factor authentication? And you've got M365, the majority of you probably have customers with it, then connecting M365 to it, so M365 can provide that asset, and you don't have to do it, and the customer doesn't have to do it. Check, done. I'll cover it here, probably will come up again, but also assignment. A problem that I had in the healthcare space some 9+ years ago, which we can still have a problem with from time to time, is you've got customers, well, that security stuff, that IT stuff, that's a you problem, right? Come on, that's what I'm paying you for, services provider. And you have to say, well, no, right? There are elements to this that are certainly IT and security that we take care of, but there are also line of business things that are really on you, the business. So we needed a way to put sunshine on those things, so that once we assign a control, um, in this case, assigning somebody, in this case, poor Googie's been assigned to making sure that we have background checks. So, put a date to it, it'll come around and he's got to validate that that's in place. If we don't have an automated way to do it, then we can, for the things that don't get done, that are the responsibility of the client, we can kick that out in a report to an IT committee or to senior leadership to understand that here's how we're progressing at helping you achieve your security goal. But we have a handful of things that, if we've got some things that we need to work on, fine. But if we've got some things that are, some individual controls that are owned by your staff, here's the people that aren't playing, that aren't really helping, right? To help get some sunshine on it, get some visibility. So because you can't care more than they do, as I mentioned earlier. And this is where that comes back. How do we build something in place, if you're building a security and compliance practice, to make sure that your customer is participating, at least if they don't care as much as you do? Ultimately, for me, I want to know exactly where my risks are, right? I don't want to manage this whole process. I don't want to go through an 80-page document. I want to look at that front page of that we looked at 3 slides ago with a green, yellow, red circle, see exactly where I am. And then I want to understand where I am from a risk assessment. This is ultimately from the data that we collect going through this. Now I know, right? I know where I am strong operationally, strategic, financially, where I'm challenged, and where I need to go put my attention. And that's really what I want to know. I don't want to understand the whole thing. I want to understand, where do I need to put my attention today to make the difference for my organization? And ultimately, that's what you should want too. We don't want to manage the process. We want to identify the things that need attention and go put our attention there, because your attention is already in short supply as it is. And so how do we drill this down and distill this in a simplistic way for our customers, so they're not thinking about all the security things and all the compliance things that are going on? No, I don't care about what else is going on in the world. I care about what's going on in this business, and what I specifically need to drill down into and pay attention to for you to make your business better today. And what are, from a bang for the buck perspective, where do we want to put our time? This type of tool absolutely drives that for me in both my CIO roles. And something that we would want you to fundamentally have access to as well. So how do you get started, right? And this will be probably a little bit of a commercial for Ascent, but Ascent Portal, which is fundamentally what you just looked at as part of this, for me, is a good place for you to start, or it's a good place to enhance what you have and add a compliance practice. The tool itself helps us manage things by exception, because we only see the things that are important, and stripping away the rest, and pay it and work on the things that are important to us, and assign the things important to the customer to them. But essentially, Ascent is onboarding is included for you guys, as well as white labeling. It doesn't have to look like us, so you can look like a bigger services provider. We will help you guys in that we will provide the pre-sales assistance, myself or somebody on my team sitting with you with some of your first 5 or so of your clients, to help drive through a demonstration, explain how this works, and find those opportunities for you to help you land your first few customers, because we want you generating revenue, because you probably, like me, have bought tools before that went exactly nowhere and became shelfware. I don't want that for you. I want that for me. So if you're going to work with us, we want to put some sales help on the front end to help you figure out how to sell this, communicate that, so you're sitting there second chair listening, so you're building your own experience. And then as you sell it, you're starting to drive revenue for your own organization. And then behind that, we'll wrap professional services in the short term if you don't have them, or long term if you want us to. But fundamentally, you're not making money on tools, you're making money on the services. So we can provide those services in the short term until I guess I would look at it like it's your kid, right? And they're riding the bicycle for the first time, right? And first you're holding the handlebar and the seat, and then eventually they can kind of balance and you're kind of holding the back of the seat. And then at some point you just kind of let the back of the seat go. The training wheels are off, and away they go. And you can realize then exactly how out of shape you are chasing a bicycle up and down the street. Speaking from personal experience. So we talked about white labeling. We talked about partnering, running baseline security assessments to understand where your clients are today. Where are they strong? Where are they weak? Where are those opportunities for you to make a big impact for them? Big impact, minimal dollars, kind of all the way up. Building towards standard and custom frameworks. So you have clients that have frameworks of controls or managing things with spreadsheets. You've got, for us, we have electrical services providers that do work for Fortune 500 companies. They're required to have an ISO 27001 since there was an HVAC vendor, several years ago that caused a breach at Target. Your CPAs now have to have a written information security program because they're now considered financial services organizations. So do your car dealerships. They're now considered financial services organizations because they're collecting social security numbers and data, and historically have been so weak from a security perspective that now there's a requirement for them. It's called the FTC Safeguards Rule. It applied to banks in 99, now as of 22, and now being enforced at the tail end of 23. And the enforcement comes from the IRS, which that's always exciting. They've got to improve their game. So anyway, look at your customers, what compliance requirements they have today, and help them get there. Drive the security products and get assistance from us or other vendors, wherever, to help build that practice for you. Look at integration, and this is as much to do with, again, I don't want to manually update every single control in there. If I've got 200 controls, you think I want to manually go update all of those, or assign and ask my client to that? I mean, if it's necessary, it's necessary, but ideally, let's look at what tools you have in your stack that we can integrate directly into Ascent, or that your clients have that we can integrate into Ascent, so that we can start to get some of those answers automatically, system talking to system, instead of a human having to take a screenshot, upload an asset, and ultimately drive that experience for the customer. We have integrated pen testing now, so that are cost effective. Effectively, you can sell a pen test for a couple of $100 that is actually quality. So you can do, I would prefer to do them once a month myself, instead of having to pay. In the healthcare space, it cost me $30,000 to do a penetration test once a year. So obviously I was not very inclined to do very many of those. Now you can get a good pen test for a couple of $100 that doesn't look like one of the, to protect the names of the innocent, but there's, pen test vendor out there that the raw report is 50 pages long and looks like a typewriter exploded on it. It doesn't read like English at all. We're talking about something good that you can take to your customer and that you can test with periodically to help make sure they stay safe. Again, they're getting poked at just like I was. So I'm looking for tools, and those things are out there now that are cost effective enough that you can drive and make money on and provide a better level of service to your customer. And then ultimately provide supporting CISO services with somebody like us or a third party, whatever you manage to build in yourself, or some hybrid, while you build the revenue to support your own separate line of business, so that you can help talk them through answering framework questions and making sure that they've got the support they need to be successful, right? Very few are going to make it to 5 years. Very few are going to make it 10 years. And your 20% of your customers aren't going to make it the first year, right? So helping put the services around it so that you are part of the dream of them achieving their dream of where they want to go. That's really fundamentally how, or as in my mind, a fantastic way to get started. If that's not granular enough, hit me up specifically and I'll be happy to dig in. I've kind of alluded to this. along the way, but our job is to help our customers survive. So yes, there are revenue opportunities for us in managed services, revenue opportunities in cybersecurity, revenue opportunities related to compliance. But fundamentally, we are there to support our end customers. That is why we exist, because theoretically we can do it better than what they were able to do themselves. And we really want to extend that to other areas of their business. As cybercrime continues to grow, the opportunities continue to grow. I want to make sure you're in a place for your own business to survive and to provide a higher level of services to your customer to protect them so they can go build whatever little monster they want to build in whatever their little industry is. But again, we got to get our own organizations right. So, and I'll wrap up with this. So we're gonna break out our imagination hat. If you're still awake, not drooling on yourself right now, congratulations. We're near the end. But it's imagine it's you and your significant other, whatever that looks like. It's you haven't been out in a while, and you are going to go someplace special. Could be Valentine's Day, could be a special event, just could be, hey, I've been working, you've been working, whatever. This is time for you to go reconnect and enjoy one another's company. And this is where I go personally, right? So, but you may have a higher standard than me. So we'll back up and try one more time. So, okay, great night. Beautiful city skyline. You're going to go out, go to a fancy restaurant, have food where the plate is probably bigger than the food. Have potentially either yourselves, a good couple, some great company to get out and really reconnect and enjoy yourselves, right? It's a good experience. And there's a parallel to this for our customers. And when the night's over, right, everybody's smiling, a couple of glasses of wine, everybody's happy. It's been fantastic. Nobody got in an argument. It's great. We're going to the door. And as you're walking out, you manage to catch a glimpse inside of the swinging door into the kitchen. And this is what you see. Now, what does that do to the overall experience you just had? It's worse, right? It doesn't matter how great it was. Now you're questioning the food you ate. Are you going to be sick, right? And this is a parallel. I mean, this is what we expect, right? We expect some guy or girl in a white outfit and a bunch of shiny stainless steel kitchen equipment, yelling and talking to each other and getting dishes out, right? This is what's in our mind. When you sit down, if you're at front of house, having a good meal, this is what you expect is going on back of house, not what you just saw, right? And this is what your customers think of you, right? They expect you to have your own act together. We expect them to have shiny white outfits in the kitchen, shiny pots and pans, everything's clean, it's great. They're in there just crafting incredible meals for us. And anything less, we're disappointed, as is your customer. If you don't have your act together, your customer can very easily, if they spot your kitchen, be disappointed in you, right? And just to give you one very large, maybe not even relatable example, in 2018, there was what the imagined Facebook looked like and worked like, and then there was the reality of how they were handling information, just to keep it really, really simple. And that gap fundamentally cost the company short term $119 billion in market value and a stock price drop, because effectively we got to see their kitchen. Right now, this is completely out of scale with probably everybody that's on this call. But the point is still the same. What you have is your reputation. What you have is what you do. So please spend the time to get yourselves right while you're in the process, or preferably before you work on helping your customers get right. And here are a few tips to help you get right. Help your customer get real-time visibility and scoring into what's going on. This could be you or them. Help them get simple oversight. For me with Ascent, if it takes me more than 3 minutes or 3 clicks to see something, then something's broken and I'm turning in a ticket, right? I don't need an expert that has to learn how to use this thing that's chained up down in the dungeon. I'm not dedicating an FTE to this thing, but I need to be able to see very quickly what's going on, and that's what I want for my customer. I want to understand how to meet compliance requirements. In this case, banks in this particular example of what this is talking about, but that could be healthcare, that could be manufacturing, that could be CPAs, car dealerships, as we have discussed. Build and standardize your compliance processes and your baseline assessments. You can get assistance with that. Help provide accountability, some sunshine on those things, because you can't care more than they do, and they've got things that they need to do. Make sure that, like with Ascent, that we've gone through those control families. So if they do have to take an audit or they have to go through some level of exam, all the data is already there and collected for them, and they're ready to go. Also, that makes it easier on you supporting them because everything is there. You don't have to be an expert. I don't cover all of these things today. They'll be available in the deck, or I'll be happy to talk to them. But fundamentally, let's keep it simple. And poof, done. So again, the 4 things we covered kind of very quickly earlier. I won't dig into these again, but there's my friend and neighbor with the sunglasses on. So that tells me that we have reached the end of our presentation. So that's it. Thank you, guys. If there's questions, happy to jump in and answer those. And if not, we can call it done, but I appreciate it. And I can't hear you, Jake. Looks like you're muted.